So we're going to talk about the rest of the print settings, the other print settings, beginning with a range of pages that we can select that's within the larger range of pages that would otherwise print. We can print one-sided or two-sided. We can print in a collated fashion. We have two choices as far as the orientation of the content on the paper. We can change the paper size, change the margin settings, change the scaling, and we can utilize what I'm calling the old school dialog box to do these setting adjustments. So I once again am utilizing the same data. It's the industries that are traded on the NASDAQ stock exchange and some operational statistics. And we're going to use this to demonstrate the print settings by going to Control P, Backstage, where we have a 6-page print job. But we can select a range of pages within those 6 pages to print by either using the spin buttons or by inputting a number directly into the field. So I can select from page 2 to 4, 2, 3, and 4 to print instead of printing 1 to 6. We can choose to print one-sided, or we can print both sides, either flipping the pages on the long edge or the short edge. And you may have a printer that does this automatically. I would have to, with my Brother printer, manually flip the pages. And for that matter, you may have some options listed here that I don't see. We can also collate the pages. You probably know what collated means. If you don't, you can look at the diagram and pretty much figure out what collating is. I want to click off of that. We have two choices for the orientation. The default is portrait orientation, which is what we see in the print preview, with the elongated portion of the page is vertical. The other choice is landscape orientation, where the elongated portion of the page is horizontal. It looks like a landscape more than it does a portrait of an individual, for instance. So a subplot of this movie, if you will, is that we're going to try to get this content that's currently on 8 pages, was on 6, but when I changed to landscape orientation, it now would print out on 8 pages. We're going to try to get this content to print on 1 page that's legible, that we can read. So the last change I just made didn't probably help in that regard. It may have made it more legible, but we have more pages now than we did before. So we're going to continue by changing the paper size, which we can do. And again, I have a simple printer, so I can change to the legal paper size, which is fine if I put that size paper in my hopper. You may have a printer that has several different paper sizes already loaded into it. But what this did was to bring us down to 4 pages. So that was actually helpful. The margins, we have some choices. We can use the last custom setting, which may be helpful. If you have a custom margin setting that you like to use, you can use it and then reuse it. The next 3 options are normal, wide margin, or narrow margin. I'm going to choose narrow margins since we're trying to increase the printed content on a page. That didn't do anything as far as reducing the page size. But the final option that we have is custom margins. This pulls up what I've been calling the old school dialog box for the printer settings, which is what you had to use 2 iterations of Excel ago. Here we can set the top and bottom margin, the margins on the left and right. We can adjust the size of the header and footer, and we can orient the content on the page and center it horizontally and or vertically. And when I click on the Options button, I'm taken to the dialog box that is my printer settings, where I can adjust the printer settings directly. I'm not going to do that, though. I'm going to cancel out of that. The next thing we can change is some scaling options. The default is no scaling, but we can fit all of the content on 1 page. And since I've chosen to center it, that's exactly what's happened. We have centered the content on the page. I doubt if anybody could read that. I know I couldn't. We could fit all the columns on 1 page, which is what we had before, because it was 4 pages before, and now it's 4 pages again. So all of the columns are on 1 page, but the content is split out between 4 pages. So it's 1 page wide and 4 pages tall. Going to the next option, we can fit all the rows on 1 page, which is just like the first option that we selected because we put all the content on 1 page, and by doing that, We obviously put all the rows onto one page. So we have a little bit more work to do, and to do it, we're going to pull up the page setup dialog box, which again is the thing that I'm calling the old school dialog box. I'm going to move this over a little bit. This is another place to change the printer settings. We can get the dialog box for the printer settings and change them directly, or we can change them on the page setup dialog box. So I'm going to make the first change to portrait orientation. And you can see one of the differences is that the change doesn't take effect immediately. I'll have to close this dialog box for the print preview to be impacted by the change that we just made. But I'm not going to do that quite yet. The second choice is scaling, where you can adjust to a certain percentage, either with a spin button or you can input a percentage. You can determine how many pages wide and tall you want to print out. You can change the paper size here, and you can change the first page number, and we'll get into that actually when we talk about headers and footers later on. And the options, of course, will take us to the Brother print settings. I'm going to cancel that. We also have the margin dialog box that we just saw when we talked about the margins. And I'm not going to make any changes there. I'm just going to click close that by clicking OK. And we've accomplished our goal. You may have to have pretty decent eyesight to read this and or glasses, but we got all the content onto one page and it's probably legible. So that's printing and other settings. We looked at the fact that we could choose a range of numbers within the larger range of pages to print. We could print one-sided or two-sided. We could print in a collated fashion. We could change the orientation of the content on the page, either portrait or landscape. We can change the paper size, adjust the margins, change the scaling, and we can do all of those things either with the Excel options that we're looking at currently in the what I'm calling the old school dialog box, or in the dialog box that was loaded with your printer that gives you control over the settings directly.